Hello, Enara. I think we're live.
Hey.
It's
You're
been a long
fine.
time. It's been a long time since I've done something like this, and I'm so excited to be doing it with you.
Me
Let me
too.
just make sure it's hooked up properly to our profiles.
Sounds good.
Okay, crazy. I can see myself. Okay, so we're going to go through a lot today. I think let me just set the stage for everyone and share my screen here. So this all started with the fact that you have a new role at BCAP or Blockchain Capital. And you wrote this article both announcing your role as well as you're hiring for a role, which we can talk about in just a bit. And there was a lot of questions about this massive slide deck you put together of 298 pages. We're going to touch base on this a little bit in the call. I know a lot of this deck is internal. So my understanding of your process was you looked at all of the like website data, you did a ton of interviews. I think you did 53 hours of interviews. And how did you count the words? Did you put that into a LOM or something?
Yeah, we basically converted all of the interviews into a large transcript, which was the queryable database that we pulled the learnings from.
Crazy. And so there's a mixture of theory in here, which we'll cover in this presentation to everyone. But your process was a ton of interviews, both on the internal team, external team, so friends of the firm, portcos. And it sounds like that really shaped what you saw as BCAP's DNA. And that was mixed with a thesis you have on what brand marketing and brand strategy looks like today. So if anyone is wondering why we're doing this stream, it's to break down this process live with Enara here. And if you have any questions, I think you can comment and we may or may not be able to see them. So yeah, I'm gonna let Enara give a formal intro, but first I have some slides that I prepared. I've known Enara for 7 years now, before I even started working in crypto full time. Um, we were neighbors back when we were living in New York. And the thing about Enara is whenever she produces any body of work, you know that this woman puts the most intentionality into it because like this is the way she lives her life. So I think this was 2024, the photo on the left. You whipped out this analog calendar. So like it folded into this little like piece of paper and you whipped it out and it was color coded and it had all of your like, I don't know, travel dates, conferences, personal life, color coded for the whole entire year in this analog thing. And I'm sure you also have a digital copy of this, but just the fact that you plan out this way it's just one of the biggest traits I've known about you of someone who's just so organized, so intentional, and is a planner. On the right here, I blurred out everyone's names, but one of the things that I remember about our friendship is just going on these trips. And I couldn't find the notion from the Japan trip, but that was one of the most organized notions I've ever seen. You had photos. I think you had like the different train lines you can take in Japan, like the different airport codes, addresses. You probably even had like vaccine info in there. I don't remember. It was archived now. But this is from your recent trip. I wasn't able to make it. I wish I was. And you had both like a beautiful slide deck for it, like really beautifully designed. And then you also had a form where you aggregated everyone's like, like the about thems. You probably had food preferences here. I'm not sure, but like flight times when they arrive, hobbies, interests. And yeah, I really admire how you use some of these skills to bring people together. And the other thing I wanted to highlight was you personally also have always been someone that encourages me to be better. So like going off the riff of just how organized you are, I think this is from 2025. No, this one's still 2024. I was like, hey, Enara, how do you plan your next year? And then I ended up having to print this I actually have it here. It's like 20 pages. It's 20 pages. I blurred it out because it's just humiliating if I show the whole world what I wrote here. But there's like a whole reflection of 2023. And like, there was even a section where I had to draw what the year would look like. This honestly took me like 5-6 hours. And You also inspired me to do my Vipassana. So that's where we did like 10 days, no talking, meditating every day. And you've also done few other side quests like this, like Hoffman. So thank you for being such a great friend. I'm really excited to go through this deck with you. And yeah, I'll let you give a proper introduction or a more formal introduction. But I just wanted everyone to know that if you know Enara, you know that anything she puts out into the world, it comes from her heart, it comes from her soul. She puts so much time into it. And how long did these slides take you to make?
A month, I would say, but it was not primarily because it took so much effort to put the slides together, but because, I mean, since you mentioned meditation, I feel like a lot of marketing is about meditating on the answer. So a month of concentrating and explaining all of the info, but about 3 months of work in total.
Crazy. Okay, so you also made some really beautiful slides for this. I just realized, by the way, I had comments turned off. So if you were commenting, we couldn't see anything. But let me share the slides that Enara prepared. And it's all about, do you want to give an overview about what we will go through today?
Sure. Well, I feel like I need to do a reverse intro now for you, Emily, because the best part about being able to be friends and also be in the same industry is that we were able to call each other through such a large part of our jobs and our experiences to be able to ask deeper questions about like how to guide an industry, how to help a company feel and look and be authentic to who it is at the core. And some of that work is really about psychology, like human psychology, as well as understanding the product. And so being able to also lean on your experience, so that spans like anything from actually working on products to agency work, seeing like hundreds, if not, I don't know if you're in the thousands at this point, but like seeing lots of clients and lots of different people's attempts and shots at goal or how to make crypto palatable has been the joy of my career. So I'm super excited to answer the question I think a lot of people wanted to know, which is how is the sausage made? Like, how do you actually do brand and marketing behind the scenes? And I don't think this process is prescriptive, but I'm happy to share more about it so that it gives some tools to people to use.
Okay, I'm really excited to pull this onto the stage. I'm having issues actually presenting it. It's like lagging for me. So is this working right now?
I think so. Usually there's a second screen that pops up on the side. If not, I can try presenting it. Yeah, there you go. It's working.
Okay, amazing. So marketing and brand vision.
That's right.
And that's it.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Okay, I would brag about yourself.
Okay. Well, no one comes in crypto by having 20 years of working in crypto. Everybody is bringing with them a lot of past experiences. And I would say most of everything I know and that I learned through live events and through also building 2 different companies. When you are trying to create or build a product, you need to be very clear on the problem that you're actually solving. And so a lot of the questions that I would ask myself in my work is how can you best serve your audience? Like, what is it that they care about? How can your product answer those questions? And how can you deeply relate to that person's life in order for that answer to be true and clear? I found myself working a lot with clients that focused on designing luxury products, which means they are designing products that are already incredibly functional and are the best of the best in their categories, but they're looking for ways how to make their product be different. And so a lot of that relies on storytelling and less on the functionality of the product. So that's really what brand and marketing is about.
Do you want to talk about how you got into tech or how you got into crypto? Because you started with fashion and design, right?
Yeah, fashion, design, festival production, a little bit of work in like on stages and theaters and film. I really wanted to understand how to capture people's attention. And I find like visual design as well as really compelling words command attention. And products offered such a nice canvas for you to be able to design language around something really specific and to figure out what type of imagery will then support that type of work. So my first company was a coding bootcamp, which was not something that I thought I would be building, but I became really interested in the problem of how to redesign education. I met my first co-founder in university, and so we just started hacking on that problem. The question that we wanted to answer is, how do you identify a person that's going to be really great at working in tech, and how can you motivate them to make sure that they go on the journey of becoming an engineer and then sustaining that interest? So that initial problem solving territory carried over into this work. My second company was an agency that was focused on doing this exact same thing, except for clients.
Okay, so the next few slides are really exciting because I don't think anyone has seen these except for people in VCAP. And again, this is more like the marketing theory. You were laying the groundwork, and then the rest and bulk of that 298-page slide deck was a lot of the conclusions that you came to and sharings from these hours and hours of interviews you did. Okay.
All right. So the question that I think a lot of tech companies get confused by is, why should they have a brand? What should their brand be like? Why focus on designing it? Especially, most importantly, why should we ever focus on its evolution and the redesign of a brand? And one thing that is true about life, no matter what, is that change is the most constant factor of human existence. There's two forces that specifically impact companies. One is the changes and the developments in the technology, which dictates the possibilities of what can be created and different levels of efficiencies that can now be achieved due to the technology available to us. And the second part is the human part, which is how people feel about your product. What are they interested in? What have they gotten over? And most importantly, what's next? So this combination of efficiency in the tech stack, as well as with what people really want, is what makes you start to calibrate your brand image.
And this is constantly changing, right? Or do you find like a foundation and then it grows from there?
Yeah, I mean, I really like using as an example brands that people are very familiar with. If you look at the McDonald's logo, the color and the yellow fry color, the red, is so recognizable that at this point they can just do a billboard that's just red and people will know exactly what that color represents. So the evolution and the iteration of the brand usually moves towards its simplicity. It's like a journey of reducing and trimming all of the frills and concentrating your value, because you are progressively getting to know yourself more and more as a company and as a product. And something that's really interesting about where we find ourselves now is that there's been a rapid commodification of almost everything, from jobs to skills to various items. And when everything is now for sale, people have to then focus on something beyond just the function and the functionality of a product. You have to talk about its meaning, the form that it takes. Objects can often go from something that fulfills a function to them becoming a collectible. And I find that gap and that distance of functionality to form to be the most interesting ground of where you can build a brand upon. The closer you get to purely form, the more luxurious the product usually is. It transcends its function and it becomes a symbol of something. And that's really difficult to do because you have to connect to the zeitgeist and really evolve in a way that you don't lose your essence, but you continuously adapt to change. So that's the art of brand building.
And speaking of everything as a commodity, do you mind if I read out loud the text you sent me on these glasses?
Yes.
Okay, so you sent me this photo, and you're like, when you're back, I will take you to the best glasses shop I've ever seen. Glasses from the 1920s in perfect unworn condition. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. And I sent you a link to like another vintage glasses archival like library, but it's only from the 2000s. And you're like, this is cool. I'm really not wanting to shop labels anymore. Not interesting. Literally the same clothes on every rack around the world. And I completely agree with this, especially, like the more you travel, you see the commoditization due to algorithms and social media and just media in general, and how fast information moves digitally. And I think now with LLMs, it also commoditizes skills. So it's all about the input. But yeah, I'm excited to see these glasses from the 1920s.
I need to be careful about what messages I send you. Never know what's gonna get read on a live stream.
No, but it supports the statement. It just shows that you're living through the same values that you are currently believing and practicing.
Well, I think this is a nice segue. Part of the reason why I find the need to understand the human psyche really important is because that's exactly how we make decisions. Like the way that somebody chooses a product is incredibly subjective, and it usually has to do with you in the landscape, in the sea of other options. If there's certain standards that are already being hit and achieved by other brands, if you go below that, then your product immediately starts to lose itself and also become deprioritized when there are arguably better options available. So I think going through that line of questioning, understanding what is it that other people are not offering as a basic, and what can I do to differentiate myself that is still true to me and that doesn't just copy paste from other practices. I'm a big anti-copy paste person. I'm right now writing a piece about the difference between taste and style. Everybody really likes to talk about taste because taste is very easily recognizable. If somebody is a fashion designer and they have a collection, you can flex your taste and say that I really like those specific items. But at the end of the day, you had nothing to do with the process. You're just an observer who's able to recognize somebody else's great work. And having style yourself is the application of these observations. It's being able to then interpret and put into practice what is it that you find interesting. And that is the much harder part of the equation. It is a lot more fraught with like difficult choices, and it comes against this, what this Jacob Nielsen's quote is aiming at, which is standards and expectations, as well as your own definition of what should exist. So this is the guiding force that helps a brand take shape.
So I'm just going to read what it says over here. It says, Jacob's Law: users spend most of their time on other websites, so they expect your site to work like all the other sites they already know. Yeah. And I think this really encapsulates what you've been saying about how things are commoditized and how to stand out as a brand.
Yeah. This quote specifically is something that was the bane of my existence when I was consulting fashion brands, which at the time, especially between 2021 to 23, this was luxury world's critique of crypto, that the things that crypto valued and found interesting or good were good for crypto, but it was not good enough for other brands. Brands were unwilling to borrow or lend their brand image to other crypto companies because of the juxtaposition of their brand next to a new up-and-coming company. And so this is something that we kept trying to change and to find players within the space that wanted to match the professionalization and the presentation and the optics of what crypto is preaching, and making sure that it is packaged in a way that people are willing to approach and consume and also consider to be of the standard. And it was easy to understand why this was the case. Like in the next slide, I have a couple of screenshots of how crypto looked at the time of that presentation, and it primarily lived in the land of neon colors and really gamer-like aesthetics. And it was very difficult to find options that would then match the level of detail and presentation elevated status that other brands were focused on. I think you're on mute, Emily.
I was saying there's this huge spectrum here from this alien looking creature with multiple arms and 2 eyeballs to this consensus slide.
Yeah. It's really in some ways it created a camaraderie where people were able to recognize each other within the space. It was very playful, and crypto took itself seriously enough to build very incumbent and insurgent or dissident technology, and that also at the same time didn't want to succumb to the pressures of what was expected of it from the outside. So there was this pressure of wanting to just have your own culture, have your own aesthetics, and not match the world, and at the same time struggling to be accepted by the mainstream because of the way it looked. So that tension was a really big part of crypto's history. And this is something I love to talk about for any product, whether it's crypto or not, is that especially people that are technical, that are designing solutions, they often focus on the description of said solutions. The transformation that your product is able to offer, the connection that it can provide for you, the experience that it is able to enable is a very different description versus just pushing people to accept your product and service. And a lot of the marketing that you would see right now when it comes to technical products that have marketing teams that are focused on speaking to other developers, they talk about features, memory and other components of the product that will entice a builder to continue building. But when a product is trying to break into the into consumer's life, things become a lot more emotional. They become subjective and very lifestyle driven. And so these four pillars is what good branding is meant to stand on, not just a description of your product and service.
And do you think the balance or weights of these different pillars vary if you're B2B versus B2C, like to consumer
Yes.
versus institutions?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking to a developer to developer, and you're talking about feelings and the transformation something's going to offer, like I think they will just think you're not a serious product, and it will kind of go over their heads. So you do have to know your audience and know when the technical jargon is appropriate, and in fact is exactly what people are looking for. But if you want your product to speak to the consumer, especially when people's precursor knowledge can be sparse and they might not know much about your industry, you have to really tone down the language that is hyper specific in terms of why your product works, and go more into the win that it can offer, the change that it can bring into somebody's life, the comfort and the novelty that it offers.
Makes sense. Whoa, we just went into light mode.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how difficult it is to actually articulate this. Like it takes a long time to get to that point as well. And when we think about great branding and what exactly a great brand stands for, it very often doesn't attach itself to the functionality of the product that it offers. There's multiple reasons for why that's important. You are allowed to change your products as long as it continues to sell the same mission. If you are part of the Nike ecosystem, they're not just selling shoes, they're selling a whole bunch of objects, but at the end of the day, they are pushing you to associate yourself as the type of person that is pursuing personal greatness by choosing the best possible fitness wear. If you have Aesop in your bathroom, that means like you actually do very much care what type of soap that you're using. You care about the experience and the aroma and how the bottle looks. So you're an intellectual, you're very sophisticated, and it represents certain things about people's identity and their character and which product they actually reach for when they're making the purchasing decision. If you have an Apple computer, that means you're creative, you're on the go, you're potentially a digital nomad, you're somebody who likes a product to look sleek. If you have a Microsoft computer, you're looking for functionality, you want a gaming powerful machine that's going to allow you to potentially set up rigs that will allow you to perform complex functions. And so that separation needs to be very obvious, especially if your brand is trying to convert the masses and reach the entire world.
How long do you think this process takes? Because to really become a brand means that other people are seeing who you are for you. So it's not like Aesop is like, hey, they don't have like a banner that says like, this is intellectual sophistication. So how long do you think that process usually takes and what goes into it?
I mean, well, that's the best part about branding is that you cannot say the thing that you mean out loud. If you say, I am great, then you're instantly kind of cutting off the branch that you're sitting on because you are making that decision for other people. And instead, it comes through micro considerations, everything from your logo to your presentation to the way that it feels to enter your website to the way your socials look, the language, the tone. Like these are the components that make and collate the entire brand appearance, and the feeling comes across through the consistency of that assertion. Like the more you express yourself through this typeface, font, and packaging and all of these micro choices, the more evident the subliminal meaning becomes.
Makes sense. It's similar to what you were saying earlier about McDonald's, that the logo is so ingrained at this point with just the amount of frequency. You see it, and they've been around for over, half a decade now, or half a century now.
Yeah. And it's not a new practice. Like I think I used to have a podcast where I had the woman that was responsible for growing Moet Hennessy in the US a couple of decades ago. And she said that branding goes back to cattle. Like you were able to then essentially brand your cow and say, hey, if you buy my cow, if for some reason it gets sick and you need to come back to me, the cow is branded, and now you have not only my seal of approval that like we take care of our product, but also you can then go find me and I will be responsible for the quality of said product. So the initial meaning and the purpose of branding, I think, still carries over, and it really is a symbol of the type of lifestyle, values, and the meaning that your product is meant to fulfill. And this is really evident in branding when it comes to fitness, because you're the type of person that gets up at 5 a.m., that is unafraid to hit the road before the sun is up. You are a committed person who's able to show up, especially when it's really difficult. And that type of messaging can be alive within any product, but I feel like tech has just not considered that as a necessity, and they very much focused on functionality, so much so that they've forgotten to really care about the packaging and that is worthy of the thing that's inside of it. So that's what I love to focus on the most.
I think I agree with you with athleisure and like these fitness brands, the way they do the photography, and like you can even see with the yellow shoes, the blur, it just shows that there's movement in a static image. And you see this with car ads as well. And yeah, I think you're right that with crypto specifically, it's very function focused. There's less of a feeling. And I think that actually, as I'm thinking out loud here, but the ones that do encapsulate a feeling, it's usually about making money. And that's not, I don't have a brand that comes to mind where it's done in a tasteful way. I think we are in 2026 moving more towards fintech. So there's like an aspirational branding towards these massive neobanks and banks, whether that's Robinhood or Coinbase, or just like in being able to disrupt like the Charles Schwabs of the world. But it's not at the level of where fashion or clothing is yet. I think makeup and beauty is another one too, where it's very specific. You can see it in the style.
Yeah, I would give credit to Coinbase though. Their recent ad that they filmed that looked like a video game of a person basically stuck in the system trying to break through the matrix was incredibly powerful, to the point that, first of all, people didn't know that it was real human beings and the ad was filmed completely manually. So it was actors, not CGI. And it was also quite emotive of the feeling of how people feel. People feel stuck. They feel like they're on a hamster wheel, and Coinbase is saying, like, we recognize that this is how you must feel, and we're now offering a product that allows you to have higher degree of independence, higher degree of financial literacy. And if you come to us versus your other bank, which, I mean, I don't know, if you open like a Bank of America app, like it doesn't look like it's changed significantly in many, many years. The alternative starts to feel a lot more attractive and a lot more they start to feel less like an incumbent, but like a better option.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that ad, it's a really cool ad. But the thing is, I saw it on LinkedIn or YouTube. It didn't actually surface to me on crypto Twitter. And I think that just goes to show how myopic the bubble can be, or the echo chamber can be. And I actually looked into the agency that made that. I believe it's a London-based agency. And I think that's one of the best things, or most practical things someone can do if they want to get inspiration on how bigger brands are doing, is look at the awards that are being given out for top adverts every year and just going through the different films. And here we have, that's a perfect segue for toothpaste.
Yeah, I really love looking at products that everybody has in their home and showing how you're meant to break through a category of something that feels extremely familiar. I had a friend who used to work for Nestle, and he said that marketing candy is one of the easiest products to market because of how much personal marketing that parents do to their children. Like if you grow up eating Twix, when you have a kid, you're going to introduce them to the Twix bar and enjoy them enjoying it, and it'll be like a family tradition. So that product is incredibly sticky and sticks around in the sense that you are unlikely to switch between different options until the kid has their own preferences and they discover other snacks from their friends. When it comes to toothpaste, most toothpaste compete on two things. One is ingredients, and then the second is dentist approval. And so all of them kind of start to look the same, and they're all red, white, and blue. And so you kind of just pick one and it does the job. But there's always a subcategory of people that are willing to have their products start to become symbols of their taste, of their curation. They actually do care of how something smells, looks, and tastes. And then there's always that product that appears that fulfills that wish. And in this toothpaste category, there is this Stella Hatton toothpaste that is Rick Owens' favorite brand, that also translates to soap and to sanitizers and just like other objects that are incredibly non-discriminatory in most households, but that always appeal to a more discerning consumer that is also willing to pay a higher price for the design and the thought that went into it.
What's the retail price of this toothpaste on the right? The Salahatin.
I want to say
I will look it up right now.
It might be higher, but I want to say it's somewhere around $60, $70.
Rick Owens, actually, he's selling a perfume as well right now. I think it's like 1,200.
Yeah,
Crazy. Yeah, sounds about right. I can't, their website is not loading for me. It's actually asking me to subscribe. So it's a really bad UX so far. We're going to move on.
Let's see if I can. So, it's actually a bit less, 35 euros. And if you want a set, it would be 50.
Wow. Yeah. No, the full set that I see here is 120. A travel set is 180. Oh, and this is in euros. So it's even more in dollars.
I need to check your discount websites. Touchland. This brand was started during the pandemic by a woman who just thought that her hand sanitizer was not cute enough. It's the pandemic. You're using it every single day. And she was like, you know what? It needs to smell better. It needs to fit into my purse. And yeah, almost $1 billion acquisition that could compete with something like Purell, which is like a household name. Everybody recognizes, every mom feels safe to reach for the product. And yet most checkout kiosks, be it Europe or in the US, will have a Touchland hand sanitizer at checkout.
That's wild, the acquisition.
Yeah. And yeah, same goes for soap. I mean, Aesop they're famous for being obsessive over their design and making sure that whenever they're making any design decision, it is incredibly custom. It takes into consideration location and the materials available locally, and they play around with scents, but not too much, so that they don't create a variety of options. There's only so many things that you can choose from, so you trust Aesop's curation on that behalf. And so when you have the choice between the soft soap or an Aesop, I think a certain subset of people definitely go for the more elevated option.
Something to add here with how they cemented their brand image is putting themselves in or having certain deals with hotels, like 5-star hotels. So you associate it with that kind of prestige of luxury. And now we're seeing that a bit more with these other luxury soaps that are popping up. It seems like every like Equinox has their own deal with Cowshed, or maybe that's Soho House. I get it mixed up. But all of these different soap brands are trying to land these, I guess, like these partnerships where you can experience a product in real life at these environments where you associate the brand with.
Yeah, but I mean, just to go back to Seth Godin's quote, people like us do things like this is a lifestyle decision. Like if you are the type of person that travels and is considerate and is worldly and would like to have these things as an option, you would then like to have your product be very closely associated with other places that your target customer will want to visit. There's a quote that's been overused quite a lot, but I just find it useful and true, which is the Studio 54 quote that says, their door policy was a dictatorship at the door and a democracy on the dance floor, which focused on exclusion as a tool to provide inclusion for a certain group of people. It's like not everybody can be your family. Some people are your family. And for those specific people, you tend to them with your entire heart and you give them more than you would to other people in your life. And same goes for products. They have their target consumer. Ideally, they know exactly what they want and they can tailor their product and offering to those wishes.
Yeah, as they say, you can't be everything for everyone.
Exactly. And I think something that really disheartened me around where marketing has headed since Facebook ads became a thing and people are able to optimize things to the nth degree is that optimization completely removed the human element of being able to delight people and to connect with them in a way that focuses the KPIs not just on reaching certain metrics that might look right in the numbers, but might not translate in the way that people actually feel. So yes, your KPIs are important in terms of how well received your content is. It is an indicator, but at the core of what the marketing is meant to serve is to keep people interested, inspired, involved, and close to your work and to your product. And so the quote that I like to tend to when I describe this is Elliot Eisner's quote that not everything important is measurable and not everything measurable is important. And having a distinct line of when you should rely on metrics and when you should really optimize for things that don't scale but that will provide value is the art part of marketing and branding. And this is something that I closed my presentation with, which is a learning that I had from a teacher of mine who was trying to help me build out the coding bootcamp, which was my first business. I had no idea how to build a school, so I asked the teacher if they had any tips on like what I'm supposed to do right in order to provide the right classroom environment. And he said that you cannot make people do anything. People have free will and their own volition, but the one thing that you can do is to love something in front of them so much that it inspires in them a desire to want to learn themselves. And so I like that self-awareness and the ability to control what you can control, let go of what you cannot do anything about, and to allow your own practice to be the reason certain people are attracted to you. And so when we are in the business, I mean, I'm in the business of venture, which means we work with founders who are building exceptional products that are looking for the right partners to be in their ecosystem. And so when they are assessing which of these people I would want to be able to call on a difficult day, what types of doors can they open for me, what type of support is going to be available to me after I receive the check, it becomes really evident about what is it that people care about in those relationships. And the thing that really attracted me to BCAP as a team is their relentless dedication to something for such a long period of time and the level of commitment and closeness that they have with the people that they've backed. And so this can translate to, of course, a physical product, but I think at the end of the day, venture is a relationship-based business, and the way that you treat people long-term says a lot about your character and your value system.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for running us through that whole presentation. Do you mind if I ask some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the presentation, you talked about the different pillars, and you touched on it a little bit just here on how BCAP is a venture-based business. When you're doing the marketing for BCAP, you are attracting founders to want to work with BCAP, I assume. How do you look at the different segments between brand and the people behind the brand? And I'm getting a call, so I think it's the mailman that I told you about. Give me a moment. I'll let you answer though.
So this is a nice question to also wrap up on, but there's not that big of a difference between the brand that the person gets to experience on the outside and then also their direct experience with the people that are representative of that brand. So the carriers of the brand isn't just the text that's on the website, it isn't just the objects or the merch that somebody gets, it's their direct experience with the person. So in my case, it's their experience with the investors. And founders are limited to the amount of moments they actually have with an investor. You could meet an investor or a general partner by pitching to them, maybe you run into them at an event, but at the end of the day, it's a bit of a black box where you don't know truly how a company operates, and you're trusting and trying to understand and make the best possible decision for yourself in the future of your firm. And my goal is to make sure that each investor is then able to provide and extend the experience of what they believe in and how they think through their writing, through the interviews that they have given, and that you have multiple touch points and opportunities to meet them, even if that is not in person. So externalizing and understanding the gifts that each investor has and amplifying those specifically that is tailored to them is how you are able to splinter and to diversify the brand through the various characters that represent it.
That's a really good breakdown, because it's like you're building someone's personal brand, but at scale, and there's a node that it all connects to, which is BCAP, the company. So that being said, I hear you're looking for some help. Talk to us about this role and who this dream hire would be.
Yeah, I mean, I designed the entire department within BCAP a little bit like a startup. We were moving very quickly and trying to iterate on a lot of new concepts of what it actually means to do marketing within venture. And when you're going into this uncharted territory where you're inventing processes and you're trying to create things that are not modeled after playbooks or previous systems, you need somebody who is, to a degree, entrepreneurial, where they're able to see and sense what's coming next and are not afraid to experiment and to build out what those things might be. They have to have an innate interest and also a really good eye for both visual and verbal communication. That's not something you can acquire overnight. It's usually a personal interest that is then nurtured through how you observe the world, the types of literature that you read, what you find interesting, what you find not interesting. And so I love to ask a person more about like how they actually cultivate that within their personal life as well as their professional life. And lastly, this is a person that also understands that AI is part of our lifestyle, and they're actually quite excited to leverage it within appropriate parts within the marketing process, which helps you automate things that should be automated, that should be specific and regimented, and then allow yourself to focus and allow the brand to also focus on amplifying the human interactions that we can have with our target audience. So the processes aren't about pumping out more content faster. It is about automating things that can then create more space for connection.
I love this line you have right here. I think this takes a lot of discernment, and it makes me really excited to read your post on taste versus style. Yeah. What is the next second half of the year look like for BCAP now that you have the strategy in place and the foundations?
Yeah, I mean, we're excited to. A lot of it is a bit of a secret, so I think I don't like to preview things because I allow things to change behind the scenes. Like you set a strategy with the intention that it is meant to be flexible. There's certain things, certain decisions that become very obvious, but you're meant to be incredibly responsive to the world. Every time you log online and go on X these days, there's a new process that is being presented to you and a new strategy for how something can be done. So we have adopted already quite a lot, even from Q1 and Q2 and all of the changes that have come. But the thing I'm most excited about is to reintroduce the team and to connect with the next wave of founders that are building within crypto and beyond.
That's so exciting. They're really, really lucky to have you. And thanks so much for your time today and for coming on. And if anyone wants to find you, they can find you on X. And also the role is up on, I think it's also in your article, so they can reach out there.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Enara.
Thanks for having me. This was amazing. Get to talk to you soon.
Okay.